Lovely Traces of Hope by Kathy Burris and Leisha Dene Burris, Chapter 12. Tracing Leisha. Leisha was only 15. She was bold, courageous, and full of vitality. We remember the way she quoted movie lines at just the right moment, or said what the rest of us were thinking at what might have seemed to be the worst moment. She played violin in the youth area orchestra, keyboard on the church worship team, and basketball on the homeschool team. She loved words, anything to do with words, debating, singing, journaling, talking, emailing, etc., etc. One of her greatest joys was being a student leader for the junior high group at church. Her friends considered her a best friend. Her teachers and employers thought her a favorite. She was described as a cross between Miss America and the President of the United States. That's our Leisha. One of the quotes she referred to over and over again was, "Go after God, whatever it takes. Do it. Don't give the excuse, I'm just a teenager. I'll do that when I grow up," because it doesn't work that way. God wants to know you now. That quote was taken from the pages of The Journals of Rachel Scott, a real diary of faith. Rachel had been killed in the shootings at Columbine High School at the age of 17 on April 20th, 1999. Her book inspired Leisha to begin her own journal. Today, I'm grateful to have her thoughts in writing and on her taped journals. How precious they are. Losing a loved one so unexpectedly means there is no time to prepare. One moment she was vibrant, full of life and sparkle. The next moment she lay void of any life. I'm not saying it's easier losing a loved one after a long battle with cancer. Not at all. Death or illness or other losses can be devastating, no matter how it comes. It would be untrue to say that my life flatlined the day Leisha died. It didn't. In fact, for a couple of weeks, we were so surrounded by people that we loved that I was coping quite well. The shock to my system was quite effective at numbing the reality that I had lost a child. It wasn't that I didn't acknowledge Leisha was gone. It was that I didn't own it. My feelings and emotions weren't lining up with the facts. However, even the night of her accident, I found myself asking, why would God allow this? He knew he had created her to influence. I wasn't the only one that knew it. I'd often been told by others in her world that she was bold in her faith, impacting in her relationships, and sold out to God, the God who made her. This surely wasn't part of all the days ordained for her or for me. It prompted me to think of the text that she had been composing intently. She wouldn't let me read it until she had the wording just right. And then, with some ceremony, just a few weeks before her accident, she presented it to me to ponder. It said this: I chose to be in the world, but not of it, when I chose to follow you. Trial, I knew, would push me far from you, but I am running still as you ask me to. I crawl through the mud, for my legs can go no further. You pick me up. You carry me as a child in your arms. You take me to a place of safety, a place of hope, a place of beauty and joy, a place known only to me in storybooks and fairy tales. You take me home. My porcelain heart seems to break at every turn, but hope, I see, is not far from me. For you open the skies to rain down your mercy, and you then bring sweet rays of sunshine upon my face. So heal me now, Lord, for you are the potter, and I am the clay. God, I now say the words I fear most. I surrender. With eerie accuracy, I could almost hear her read those words to me now. Lord, you pick me up and you carry me as a child in your arms. You take me to a place of safety, a place of hope, a place of beauty and joy. You take me home. What had God done to prepare her to write words like that just before she went to heaven? Were they for her? Were they for me? Her last paragraph spoke to my porcelain heart that seems to break at every turn. But hope, I see, is not far from me. Hope. Heal me now. I surrender. I've pondered those last two words often, each day becoming more aware of the fear involved in surrender. I thought I knew what she meant the day after her death, but as time went on, I discovered I was nowhere close to understanding. It was the day after her memorial service when I finally sat down to read through her most recent journal. It was filled with random thoughts of her day and her life, and I was pleased that she had started a gratitude journal. She had come to the kitchen a week earlier and had shared how discouraged she was about life, about relationships. I had encouraged her to find 5 things that she was grateful for every day before she went to bed. She had told me the day before she died that she felt the gratitude journal was working. And now I was grateful to see that I had made the list a couple of days. If you open the journal from the other direction, it was her book. Her title, Lovely Traces, then chapter 1, Once Upon a Time. She told the story of how her dad and I met and married, where we lived, when her older sisters were born, even the story of baby Eric and my struggle with God. And then she wrote, but Mom decided that she would trust God. And I was born. Leisha Danae Burris, April 28, 1991. Wow. Just 16 years earlier, I had arrogantly told God to take my baby, thinking I had the right solution to a tragic situation with baby Eric. More about that in earlier chapters. But I had been so very grateful every day since that moment that he had not listened to me. And now she was gone. And here in her own words, I heard the challenge that once again, I must trust God. What would that mean this time? Earlier that morning, I had picked up my Bible to continue reading where I had left off the day before. Ironically, I was beginning the book of Revelation. As John, the author of the book, was worshiping in the Spirit, he writes, suddenly I heard behind me a loud voice like a trumpet blast. It said, and I saw these words bold and coming off the page at me, write in a book everything you see and send it. Send it to the 7 churches. When I turned to see who was speaking to me, I saw 7 golden lampstands, and standing in the middle of the lampstands was someone like the Son of Man. He was wearing a long robe with a gold sash across his chest. His head and his hair were white like wool, as white as snow. His eyes were like flames of fire. His feet were like polished bronze, refined in a furnace. His voice thundered like mighty ocean waves. He held 7 stars in his right hand, and a sharp 2-edged sword came from his mouth, and his face was like the sun in all its brilliance. Then I read these words, again, bold, coming off the page. When I saw him, I fell at his feet as if I were dead. But he laid his right hand on me and said, don't be afraid. I'm the first and the last. I am the living one. I died. But look, I am alive forever and ever. And I hold the keys of death and the grave. Write down what you have seen. Both the things that are happening now and the things that will happen. That's the real story. That's the real story in your life and in mine. It's the story of the living one who died and how he shows up in our stories. I've been reminded of that truth from the first words of the first song that was sung at Leisha's memorial service. The worship team that Leisha had been part of the week before led us in worship that day. Michael strummed his guitar and boldly proclaimed, you lived, you died, you said in 3 days you would rise, you did, you're alive. Anyway, it sounds kind of like that. On that day, I had already seen the intimate ways God was showing up for us, but I knew that the living one would show up bigger. He would have to he would have to show up bigger than I'd ever known him to be in order for me to survive Leisha's death. Even as the numbness of shock was beginning to wear off, I sat down to write.